So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Brexit trade deals may not deliver any actual economic benefit, MPs warn. So this, as always, is just phenomenal. Like, is anyone surprised by this? Are you surprised? You sound surprised. I'm not at this point. It is uncertain whether Brexit free trade agreements negotiated by Boris Johnson's government will provide any actual economic benefits, an influential committee of MPs has warned. Now, before we go into the main bits of the article, let's remember here, the Australia and New Zealand deal at best add 0.02% to our GDP, whilst at worst give us minus 0.02% to our GDP. Also, the fact that it hits agriculture really badly in terms of, I think it's around in the millions, multiple millions, it hits the sector. So, with that added on to this, are we surprised the MPs have come to this conclusion? Are we? In a scathing report released on Friday, the Public Accounts Committee said the Department of International Trade has been too secretive and not kept Parliament informed about what it was doing. Now, another bit I want to add is I saw, this is something Dr. Anna Jaworska tweeted months ago, which is that in terms of trade deals, countries have strategic goals in mind in order to, what do you want to achieve with your trade deals? Now, Australia, their targets are zero quota, zero tariff on agriculture. That's one of their main targets when it comes to trade deals. That was the thing they got from the UK. It's phased in, but that's what they got. And the trade negotiator, I can't remember what his name was. I think it was Dimitri something. Can't remember his surname. But he talked, I think he was one of the ones working for the Australians at the time and said, look, this was Australia's goals and we got them. Essentially, what are the UK's goals when it comes to trade deals? And we'll talk about that in a separate article, but the main crux of it are these are political trade deals, not economic ones. They're not aimed at boosting the economy, they're aimed at politics. We've got to deal with Australia, we've got to deal with New Zealand. Where are the EU's deals with New Zealand and Australia? Suck it, EU. That's what these trade deals are aimed to do. The cross-party committee warned that there was a risk consumer standards could slip because of the deals, with possible trade-offs across different policy areas such as agriculture, the environment and human rights. Now, New Zealand do have good standards. They have an equivalency deal with the EU. So I know someone's told me off in the comments twice about it, so I won't go any further than that. Australia doesn't. Australia have really bad animal welfare standards. They also treat animals with hormones, etc. And so I don't know if that hormone treated beef will come into the UK, because the trade secretaries, Truss and Trevelyan, whatever her name is, have been very secretive about the contents of the actual trade deals. It's amazing that British MPs have allegedly voted to take back control of the EU from the EU, and then voted to give away control to the trade secretaries to negotiate these deals. It's absolutely wild. The cross-party committee, that's where a lot of the best work that MPs do will come out, warned there was a risk consumers, I mentioned that. Tory MP Sir Geoffrey Clifton Brown, what a name that is, who deputy chairs the committee, said the Department for International Trade was really struggling to point out to tangible wins for British businesses, consumers, or our own agricultural sector from its programme of negotiations. The UK won't be able to compete with New Zealand, Australia, America or Brazil in terms of agriculture. We won't be able to do it. The costs are too high here, which is not necessarily a bad thing in terms of if we had a protected market, because we have high animal welfare standards. But, the simple fact is we're trying to compete with countries that don't. The committee's report warns there is a lack of clarity about how the department will measure whether it is achieving benefits from its programme of negotiations so that Parliament can hold it to account for its progress. But what do we know? The simple fact is these trade deals add nothing to our GDP, will boost some sectors but will take away from other sectors. And trade deals do have trade-offs. Everyone knows that, but the trade-offs from these deals aren't worth it for us, especially compared to what Australia and New Zealand got. The department currently publishes the impact assessments it makes prior to trade agreements being implemented. They didn't do that for the EU trade deal though, which is interesting, don't you think? The department has not set any associated targets because they have no idea what they're doing. These people that we have in cabinet, right, they're the biggest group of political lightweights I've ever seen. I've never looked at a front bench of a government and thought I've seen the biggest group of clowns ever, and I saw David Cameron's front bench. I saw the Lib Dem the Conservative Lib Dem coalition, I have not seen a bigger group of people with no talent. Honestly, none of these people, because the only guy, I think his name was Julian Green, right, who managed to convince, I think it was the DUP at the time, to reopen Stormont. He was sacked from his position as Northern Ireland Secretary. He's the only one that I remember who did a good job. The rest of them, rubbish. Put them in the bin, gone. Go to the private sector, go on the speech circuit, get out. The article goes on to say there is no guarantee that the agreements will deliver actual economic benefits unless the department provides vital support to help businesses use the agreement. So what businesses need in order to use these deals properly is more socialism. They need government support, whether that's via a government-funded experts or other kinds of financial help. They need more socialism in order to make the most of these trade deals. Embarrassing. Particularly for small businesses wanting to export worldwide. And let's not forget here, predominantly, a lot of these small businesses wouldn't have exported to third countries. They wouldn't know a ton about exporting to third countries. So some of them might, which will give them some experience with the paperwork, but the ones that don't, trading with third countries will be a completely new experience for them. And so trading with New Zealand and Australia will be a completely new experience for them. And so the simple fact is, they need help. They need to hire experts to help them. But is it worth it if you have to spend money on experts and then spend money essentially because the importer pays for the customs fees and all of those things, but that will be taken out of the profits of the British company? Is that a better system than when we were members of the EU and you could trade with countries that are geographically closer to you, i.e. Spain, and you wouldn't have to go through this rigmarole? Which one's easier? 50-50, if this was the BBC, they'll tell you, it's kind of even, but I'm going to tell you trading with Spain pre-Brexit was easier. The BBC won't tell you that, but I will. Trade economists have consistently warned that the benefits of free trade agreements with other countries are being oversold by the government, which is true, because they can talk about how great these trade deals are and how much opportunity it gives business, because that's the key word, there's opportunity. But in terms of GDP, and all the millions it adds, but in terms of GDP, is little. It's 0.02%. It's not worth anything for the economy, not really. Brexit la la land. I'll cover this one. Boris Johnson's Brexit la la land. Ex-Finnish PM says. Great, I'm going to cover that one at some point. One analysis conducted by the University of Sussex UK Trade Policy Observatory last year found that all the trade deals signed by the government so far since Brexit were worth 178 times less than the expected hit from the EU single market, which I'm not sure if we covered that at the time, but the fact is these trade deals are worth very little, and in terms of these 178 deals, the vast majority of them are rollover deals that the EU already has. Some of them, like the Japan deal and the upcoming Canada renegotiations, which we'll have, are worse than the CETA deal and whatever the Japan deal is called with the EU. Shocker. A bigger kind of international group with more countries and more buying power can get a better deal than a smaller country with less buying power. Who would have thought it? Not me, apparently. The government says the agreements could have more unknown benefits in the future, but as someone else pointed out in a different article, could have more unknown, not side effects, more unknown, I can't think of the word now, the opposite of benefits, bad things, could have more bad things, sorry. Deputy Committee Chair Sir Geoffrey said the Department for International Trade seems to have forgotten that its first and core duty is to deliver for UK consumers, businesses and our environment, which is true. Geoffrey is right, because the whole point of having a British Trade Secretary is she's meant to do, or they are meant to do, what is in the best interests of the UK. Not what's in the best interest of Australia or New Zealand, the UK. And they simply haven't done so. He said the department's aim should be to create deals that will deliver real economic benefits while offering the choice of food, goods and services at the standards and prices we expect and have long enjoyed, which is true, but the simple fact is, we can buy things like Tim Tams easier, but we already have things like Tim Tams. We have Penguin biscuits, and now more recently I found something called Seal biscuits, which are a kind of like Penguin biscuits, and I'm going to go on a limb and say they're pretty good. I'm not sponsored by them. Both are pretty good. And so, that's the equivalent of Tim Tams. What we don't have is the really good Bangladeshi biscuits. Those are really good. Can you get a trade deal with Bangladesh, please, so I can get those biscuits cheaper? Thank you. The PAC has previously expressed concerns that our consumer protection system is unable to deal with the new arrangements, and recent reports of tax fraud and modern slavery breaches cast doubt on capability in other crucial parts of the trade system, because Let's look at this on a global scale, right? The EU it contains most of the European countries, which are more developed countries in the world, right? There are still problems with human rights, human trafficking, etc., but it's not as bad as it is in other parts of the world, right? And the UK taking ourselves out of that trading bloc, we've put ourselves with countries closer to countries like Russia, China, who have appalling human rights records, the Gulf countries that have really bad human records as well. Which that's where we are now. We're not at the big boys table anymore, the big kids table. We're at, we're with the bad people, the despots of the world, which we kind of belong to in a sense, but it's just sad, The department needs to. Oh, that's an article I've got loaded. I need to talk about that one. The department needs to communicate what benefits we might expect from this brave new world we've entered and what trade-offs we face. Well, they ain't going to tell you about either of those. They're going to just tell you about opportunities. He concluded, the Department for International Trade is constrained by the deliberations and choices of our biggest trading partners. That is a problem of its own making, and for it to fix families struggling out of the pandemic and into a massive cost of living crisis must not be the ones to pay, which is funny because these are always the people who pay for the government's incompetencies. Working class people and lower middle class people are always the ones to pay for government failures. And the simple fact is, getting trade deals with New Zealand and Australia isn't going to help us. Food prices are going up in the UK. We import a lot of food from the EU, and that's all gone more expensive because of the loss of lorry drivers, but more importantly, the cost of customs and everything related to customs and SPS checks. They're going to have a massive impact on the cost of goods in this country. And, it's going to have a massive scarcity as well, because some of these companies might just see it's not worth it. It's not worth the money, the hassle to export stuff. Because you've got to imagine, if you're a UK importer importing something from, say, Spain, right? We import blueberries, right? And you need your shipment in at a certain timescale, and then it gets stuck at the border because the paperwork's wrong, or some joker at the customs office hasn't done their job properly, or the custom agent hasn't given the paperwork to the lorry driver in time, which means that the lorry driver has to wait around whilst they've got stuff in the back. And, fresh fruits, they don't hold value for long. They rot very quickly. That's the situation we're facing now. And so at some point, one of these traders, either the importer in the UK or the exporter in, say, Spain, is going to say, it's not worth it. It's not worth my time. And they're going to stop. The Trade Department has faced repeated ridicule in recent years as deal after deal is projected by the government's own economists to have a tiny economic benefit, and also it could have economic declines. An elusive deal with the US was expected to just a 0.16% boost to GDP, and that's insane, over the next 15 years. And that's insane because the UK are, the biggest economy in the world. You'd think that, having a trade deal with the US would massively improve our GDP, but 0.16 is ridiculous. While deals with Australia and New Zealand are expected to produce gains of close to zero, and the EU not having a formal trade deal with the US has a lot of bilateral deals that help. And let's not forget, the US has singled us out for keeping the Trump-era sanctions in place over things like steel. The UK did hit back and threaten the US, but who are we to threaten the most powerful nation in the world? I've got more chance of fighting Prime Mike Tyson better than we do of starting a trade war with the US. It won't work. You can't start a trade war with a country that is objectively much stronger than you. It's a bad idea. It's not even a bold strategy, Cotton. It's a bad strategy, Cotton. But, the simple fact is, I'm amazed that just at 0.16, but it could be just the nature of trade at the moment. I don't know if we've kept the EU's bilateral deals with the US. Hopefully we have, and that would make this 0.16 figure make more sense. But, anyways, look, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. 0.02% is the magic number. And support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.